Hello, and thanks for joining us for the latest news on the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus. I'm your host, Mike Rao. The State House has been a busy place since the opening of the 129th General Assembly in January. Coming up on this caucus update, the contentious battle over Senate Bill 5, an interview with Minority Leader Capri Cafaro, and a Senate Democrat goes the distance to raise awareness for important causes. But first, we begin with the state budget. The governor's controversial two-year spending plan slashes funding for schools and local governments, privatizes 5 state prisons, and cuts funding for programs that serve the most vulnerable Ohioans. All the members of the Senate Democratic Caucus voted against the bill, calling it pass-the-buck budgeting that will lead to more layoffs and higher local property taxes.
We're asking working families and seniors and the most vulnerable to sacrifice in this budget, but yet we're continuing to give tax cuts for millionaires and corporations. There's not a shared sacrifice in this budget.
There will be less teachers, less police officers, less firefighters, and more potholes. And that's because we're not putting money where it needs to be, and we're giving money to people who don't need it and taking it from people who need it most.
If we value education as much as we claim, this sets up a Darwinian competition among school districts and frankly among school children all across Ohio, where some will gain enormously and others will lose terribly.
This budget reflects not the needs of people, but the wants of a few.
Senate Democrats also strongly oppose Senate Bill 5. The legislation takes away collective bargaining rights for police officers, teachers, firefighters, and other public employees. Thousands of protesters descended on the State House during the fierce debate over Senate Bill 5 to voice their opposition to the anti-worker legislation. SB 5 passed the Senate by just one vote, with 6 Republicans breaking ranks to join with Democrats in voting against the bill.
It just shows that, you can't put a 500-page bill together and stuff it down people's throats. I mean, you're going to get a reaction like this. This bill means taking, money away from working class people.
I feel that it is an outright effort to break the backs of public employees. There is nothing good in the bill at all.
Senate Democrats recently joined with other opponents of Senate Bill 5 for a march through downtown Columbus to deliver nearly 1.3 million signatures to the Secretary of State's office. The petitions are for a referendum to repeal Senate Bill 5 through a statewide vote. More controversy erupted over House Bill 194. The elections bill drastically shortens the time period for early voting in Ohio and prohibits counties from mailing out unsolicited applications for absentee ballots. Senate Democrats spoke out against the legislation because it'll make it harder for Ohioans to vote.
Republicans are stacking the cards and fixing the deck in order to deliver a 2012 win to their parties by what Malcolm X would call any means necessary.
Regardless of the intent of HB 194, the effect will be the disenfranchisement of people who have had to fight the hardest to be able to vote in the first place: poor whites, African Americans, women, and Latinos.
Joining us now in the studio is Senate Minority Leader Capri Cafaro to talk about what's been happening so far this year in the General Assembly. Senator Cafaro, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
There's been a lot of contentious debates in the General Assembly so far this year. What's your take on what's happened?
It seems to me that the majority in both the House and the Senate, as well as our new governor, has really taken this opportunity to put forth a pretty aggressive and I think extreme agenda by all accounts, whether it's about trying to eliminate collective bargaining rights for public school or for public employees, whether it's about making changes to our voting laws. There seems to be a lot of pretty extreme measures that have been brought forward that I think may have some pretty detrimental consequences to Ohio and its economy.
Let's talk about a few of those things. We'll start with the budget. You voted against it. Why?
Yes, I did, along with the rest of my Democratic colleagues in the Senate. They all joined me in voting against this budget because it does a lot of things that, frankly, hurt our local communities, local services, public schools. We're seeing significant cuts. We've robbed Peter to pay Paul in many instances, particularly with our local governments, taking away funds from our local political subdivisions, bringing them down to the state. And what that's going to do is really just force our local communities to have to raise taxes and bring levies on the ballot to provide basic services, our police, our fire, roads, education, and the like. And so that is one of the biggest concerns I had. One of the other issues that was truly very concerning to me is the push for privatization of the turnpike, the sale of our prisons, at a time where, we don't know what kind of money we're going to get for these assets, and we don't know what the consequences will be of turning these assets into private commodities.
Besides the budget, it seems like Senate Bill 5 pretty much set the tone for the year. We had massive protests, lots going on, and the polls show that Ohioans want it to be repealed. Why has there been such a strong backlash?
Well, because, I think that the people of Ohio recognize that collective bargaining has been working in the state since 1983. We've had 27 years of success in public sector collective bargaining. And Senate Bill 5 has turned that process into collective begging and has forced our teachers, our firefighters, our safety forces, and individuals that serve our community into a situation where they can't bargain for so many things that they have counted on. And it's going to have a detrimental impact not only on the delivery of services, but also on our economy. Our middle class is going to be really hurt if Senate Bill 5 is not repealed.
So with Senate Bill 5, we've also seen legislation on voting and also on abortion. Are you surprised by the type of legislation that's come up so far this year?
Not so much surprised, because as I said earlier, it seems as if the administration and the majority in both chambers have tried to seize this opportunity of economic distress to push forward an extreme agenda. I am disappointed by it, though. Disappointed that we have been focusing in the General Assembly on contentious, divisive issues and not putting the attention where I think the people of Ohio expect it to be, and that's on job creation and protecting the most vulnerable Ohioans.
So what would you like to see happen the rest of this year?
Well, as I mentioned, I'd like to see more activity on issues pertaining to job creation and to trying to make sure that, for example, we really take a serious look at the laws pertaining to unemployment compensation. We're going to have to make some changes there. I have a bill separate and apart on a totally different subject that's been very prominent in the news recently, referred to as Kaylee's Law, spurred from the Casey Anthony case in Florida. The Anthony family is actually from Trumbull County in my district, and I'll be working with Senator LaRose on that matter as well. And, I think we really have to just keep our eye peeled on what the other folks are doing as well, as far as the legislation that may come forward that could continue this kind of extreme agenda, like pension reform, for example. We really have to keep a close eye on the activity, not only that we are hoping to do, whether it be issues of job creation, economic development, foreclosure protection, et cetera, but what the other side of the aisle intends to do as well, because we do have to be an advocate for the people of Ohio.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, finally, Senator Eric Kearney doesn't always use a car when he travels to Columbus. Sometimes all he needs is a good pair of sneakers. Senator Kearney recently completed his 4th annual walk to the State House from his home in Cincinnati. The journey takes 4 days and covers more than 100 miles. Several staff members from the Senate Democratic Caucus joined him for this year's walk. Senator Kearney's trek called attention to the problem of childhood obesity and the research that's being done at Children's Hospital to find a cure for sickle cell anemia.
This is the 5th year, which if you had asked me that 5 years ago, I would have thought, well, I can only do this one time. But every year it's grown a bit, and this year we've just been fortunate to have a lot more people participate. A lot more people say that they're going to do the whole thing. And then we've had wonderful support from a lot of different groups and a lot of different people. So that's really helped us out a lot.
And that wraps up this news update on the Senate Democratic Caucus. Check back later for more updates. Thanks for watching.